Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to the Cars.co.za for Business podcast. Today I have Riaan Esterhuysen from Toyota. Welcome, Riaan. And the
Thank you.
reason that we have Riaan here is because I woke up to a headline this morning: hell has actually frozen over. Only kidding. Toyota has a recall, which is as common as hell freezing over. But Riaan, Toyota has a recall. Well, what? Why? What's happening?
So I think, Alan, to kick it off, we should maybe unpack the word recall.
That's very good.
Does have a little bit of angst in it and anxiety inducing. But really, from a manufacturer point of view, recall is a chance to potentially correct an item that could hamper the performance or, in the worst case scenario, safety of the vehicle for its occupants. And therefore, recall is really a proactive step into managing customer quality, customer expectations, and ultimately customer experience.
So a recall is you've worked out based on something that happens in any market in the world, because cars are a global thing, that this part could be faulty, and you're going proactively to your customer and saying, please come in so we can check it, rather than waiting for something to go wrong.
I think the key word you used there is proactively, and that's a very important thing I'd like to convey to the audience. Recalls are proactive measures by companies such as ourselves, Toyota, Lexus and Hino, to really reach out to a customer to say, we've noted this field report or environmental feedback. It could potentially lead to X, Y, or Z, and therefore we are proactively implementing the measures to correct that part, replace it, install an upgraded variant, or whatever the unique case may be.
And I think that's an important point. Now, when I knew I was doing this interview, I called one of my journalists and I said, Toyota's got a recall. And he went, everybody has recalls. Why is this news, Alan? And that's it. It happens because there's 30,000 or something on average parts in any car, which is quite a staggering number. And you source them, I guess, from many, many different suppliers.
You know, there's a long R&D period in development of a vehicle. But that old adage of you don't really know how it's going to perform until it's put into practice does enter the equation to some degree. And then often, also, as you mentioned, global market, such varying environmental conditions, operating conditions, climate, altitude, fuel quality, all of those enter the equation. And often it's feedback from the different dealer networks, the different distributors, etc., to say, we've noticed a spike or a peak of a certain failure or a potential issue, and therefore it's actually a responsible thing for a manufacturer to do, to investigate it and find the root cause, implement a countermeasure, and then roll that out to the customer. So a recall has this negative connotation, but I think what I'd like to convey here is that it's actually proactive and a responsible activity on behalf of the manufacturer, such as Toyota and Lexus, to say, we want to rather correct the part or whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's a physical part, sometimes it's software programming, sometimes a combination of both, in order to ensure our customers have the best ownership experience they could possibly have.
So, I mean, it's an important point, because if you're diligent enough to notice that something is failing over as broad a network as Toyota South Africa has, which is, 300 plus dealerships all around the country.
It's over 200. You gave us an extra 100 there, but it's still the biggest footprint in the country.
Biggest footprint in the country. If you've the processes in place to actually notice what is an uncommon failure, then that shows a level of diligence its own right, plus proactive in the sense of let's make sure it doesn't get escalate as well.
100%.
So what is the actual thing that this recall is about?
So the biggest one, we launched a campaign called Don't Risk It, Fix It. And it really relates to the Takata airbag inflators. Now, important to note that this is not Toyota Group specific. It is a global recall. It is the largest automotive recall in history, as Takata as a company, as a component supplier, supplied a vast majority of manufacturers. So really this stretches much wider than just the three brands I'm here to talk about, but it affects the overall car industry. So proactively, we've launched a campaign in 2025 called Don't Risk It, Fix It, that specifically encourages owners of Lexus, Toyota, and Hino models that are affected to take the vehicle to the nearest dealership, have the corrective action performed at absolutely zero cost. And I think the question that you asked, what is the specifics of the recall? It's the airbag inflator. Under certain conditions, that inflator can rupture, which can cause physical harm to the occupants should the airbag deploy.
So I guess Takata is a big name in airbags then?
Takata was, I believe, the biggest supplier of airbag componentry, and therefore having such a broad customer base on board. This is not a new recall by any means. It was, I think, harks back to 2015, but the sheer volume of vehicles affected is why we've relaunched this campaign and really trying to drive the customers that are still potentially own these vehicles or operate these vehicles. We have around 40%, according to our total numbers, for Toyota, Lexus and Hino that are still in circulation. Book reference, of course, of the total car park sold. Of course, some of these units hark back to the early 2000s, so there is question as to how many are physically still on the road, but we are targeting to have as many units still in operation corrected with this campaign.
So you've looked back over 20 years of Toyota sales, there's a vast number of vehicles, and
Yeah.
you've identified those cars that have that specific, because I'm sure it's not all Takata airbags, it's only particular
Correct.
ones as
So,
well.
so it was certain allocations of vehicles, certain models are affected, certain ranges are not affected. On the Lexus front, there are specifically 3 models that are affected, they being 2006 to 2012 Lexus IS, 2008 Lexus SC, just one here, and then 2016 Lexus RX. So to your point, it's also not all of the model, all of the range across all of the production cycles. It was a function of componentry supply.
So while you were talking there, we'll put those on screen and we'll also put it in the link down below.
Perfect.
So it's only people who have those particular make, model, variant of vehicles who would be impacted.
Correct.
Now, whenever you say campaign, how does that campaign work? Are you contacting them or do they contact you? How does that dynamic work?
So it's a bit of both. So we have a methodology that we have gone out into advertising, above the line, radio, out of home marketing, as well as direct contact from Toyota South Africa, a big social media marketing push as well. But then there is also mechanisms customers can contact our customer call center. We've got a dedicated web page where you can enter your VIN number, or they can use the My Toyota or My Lexus app to verify campaign details as well. And if all else fails, stop at your nearest dealership and they can automatically check if your vehicle is affected as well.
All those contact ones, a customer can contact you, but you're also been reaching out as well. If you're affected, then you get in touch with Toyota, your nearest Toyota dealer, and then what happens at that point?
So at that point, they will schedule basically an appointment. The process is quick to replace this airbag inflator, and I'd like to just highlight that it is at zero cost to the customer. And it also doesn't matter if the vehicle has 5,000 kilometers or 1 million kilometers, if it is within 10, 20, 25 years of its original production date. If it is affected, we as a automotive supplier, as the brand, have an obligation to correct that vehicle, and it will be done.
So it's got nothing to do with warranties or anything like that.
Correct.
If
No.
you've got one of those cars, it's there, it's no charge, just get to a Toyota dealer, get it done quick.
Exactly.
All right, but that sounds fine. So let's talk about recalls, right? Because as my journalist pointed out, everybody has a recall, even Toyota, and I'm sure it is very rare given the quality of your vehicles. But how did this arise in Toyota South Africa? Where did this first pop its head up?
So there have been a few international cases where it was found that the airbag inflators were problematic and potentially caused injury. Takata themselves then launched an investigation, and they found that their product there's certain environmental deterioration of these inflators that can render them unstable. So from a Takata point of view, they had to basically alert a worldwide forum to say, we have X amount, and the number is big, of airbag inflators equipped to these manufacturers. all of these may potentially be problematic. This happened a few years ago. The company then subsequently, I believe, went into liquidation, etc., because that is a very
Okay.
big impact if your main product line has a fault to the scale. Then specifically what prompted us to launch this Don't Risk It, Fix It campaign, there was a case reported in Africa of a unit assembled in one of our local plant, which really drove the message home to say there are still a vast number of vehicles operating within the African continent, I should say, and South Africa as a whole, and that really it is our responsibility as a brand to proactively encourage and reach out to all these customers in order to avoid any issues going forward.
So under certain environmental conditions, it doesn't mean that those environmental conditions have happened to your car
Not
right
necessarily,
now,
no.
and that you have to drive at 30 kilometers an hour to the dealership because your car is definitely faulty. It means under certain conditions, this fault could go wrong.
Yes.
Because, I mean, you guys, when you bring a car to this country, you test it properly.
We do.
And I hear Toyota really beat your cars up in the testing process.
So I think Toyota's often, and Lexus on that front, are criticized, maybe a strong word, but often remark that the product life cycle is long, that the change from one generation to the other is long compared to some of the other competitors. And this is one of the reasons. The amount of R&D and pure like durability testing that goes into both Toyota and Lexus product before bringing them to market is right up there. And it feeds directly into the old ethos of internally we use the acronym QDR, and that stands for quality, durability, and reliability. And that's a cornerstone of the Toyota brand. And on the Lexus front, I mean, the brand has of the highest historically J.D. Power scores ever recorded. It really feeds into that luxury ownership experience of saying, this product has been thoroughly engineered and thoroughly tested so that you can enjoy it, because peace of mind is a luxury in its own.
So before you bring a new Hilux to this country, how much do you actually beat it up? What do you do to it?
So there's a lot of componentry testing that gets done, but then there are test mules that run for in excess of 12 months. We have a test track in KZN that simulates the roughest operating conditions, and we have mules running continuously on their suspension, vibration, basically to try and break the car apart.
So mules, some dude just drives around and round and round and round.
So those are specific development units that run on rough terrain, dirt, suspension and testing, ramp angles, every condition you can potentially kind of torture test the vehicle under, it gets done.
So you try to break it.
We try to break it to see where the failure point is, how far it is, how much margin there is, and ultimately to what extent you need to operate the vehicle in extreme conditions before there is potentially a failure. And then that plugs straight back into the engineering teams to say, for example, this mounting point had a failure at X kilometers or X percentage of abuse. So potentially reinforce that, revise the design. It's quite a lot of behind the scenes that happens before bringing a vehicle to the market, especially a product as popular and as heavy duty as Hilux. Definitely a lot that goes into ensuring it's fit for market.
And if you take, for example, your Corolla Cross, it's been enormously successful as well. What kind of testing does that go through?
So it would be very similar. Obviously, Hilux would focus more on what is applicable to a pickup truck or a bucky or a Hilux, as our campaign jokes. That would focus more, rear suspension capability, sagging, payload, rough road conditions, wheel articulation, etc. Those are unique in the pickup or SUV proper all-wheel 4x4 application. Whereas a passenger vehicle such as Corolla Cross would undergo similar testing, but just application specific. So not to quite the abuse levels of what we would subject the Hilux, Fortuner, Land Cruiser, Prado, etc.
You probably abuse it in different ways. You've probably some that opens and shuts the boot, like 50,000 times in a year just to make sure that it
Correct.
stands up to it.
Correct.
Because that's the woolly shop every day and those kind of
The
test
daily
conditions.
commute.
So what was that acronym again?
QDR.
QDR, quality.
Durability, reliability.
And that's ingrained into Toyota.
It's ingrained into Toyota. It's ingrained into the employees, into the brand DNA, into the manufacturing and quality ethos. It is what has built the reputation that the brand has in this country. It is kind of the cornerstone of what Toyota has become known for.
Because, look, we said in Cars.co.za, we have the luxurious position of looking over the whole market.
Yeah.
And in the market, all anybody wants to talk about these days is Chinese cars. It's just this enormous amount of noise around Chinese cars, and quite rightly so, because they've had a
Sure.
huge impact. But what we've noticed is that the silence around Toyota compared to the absolute success. You guys have actually grown in our data by about 5% off a very high base to begin with. You always were number one. If you look back since pre-COVID, you were always number one, but you've actually grown quite a bit over that period. And this is in the teeth of everybody talking over here, but there's you guys sitting silently in the background growing. How do you do this?
There are a lot of levers that get pulled in the background. From a business point of view, the marketing strategy. One of the key things we did was we expanded our passenger market. Whereas we were traditionally, I say traditionally, maybe 15 years ago, much weaker on passenger, and the LCV market really led the Toyota market share. There was an aggressive strategy put in place that really kicked into effect, as you point out, 2020, so around COVID, where we offered a lot more product in the entry level side of the passenger segment, cars like Starlet, Urban Cruiser, and those have really revolutionized our passenger split. We brought more affordable Toyota product into the market. And then we've continuously adapted to customer needs. The Hilux has received the upgrades when it needed them. And it's really just tweaking and pulling the levers at the right time to keep that market share and keep the volume up high by offering customers ultimately what they're looking for. And on that point, I'd like to just segue to the Lexus brand specifically, where last year it held 8% market share in the premium segment. Now, 8% might not seem like a big number. I know you're a numbers guy, so you know what it means, but it's actually a brand that has increased its market share and grown in sales amidst a vastly declining segment, which is something we are super proud of, and really talks to the Lexus business model and that customer experience and the luxury that Lexus as a brand delivers.
Because I was actually going to quote in the luxury market, it's one of the questions I'm going to ask you, because when we look at our data and talk to our journalists, the actual real star in the luxury market in this country is the Toyota Land Cruiser.
True. It's of the over 1 million rand mark, I think is probably the top volume seller single model range in our market.
And it's funny because, again, there's other brands that make more noise. It's not a segment where the Chinese compete aggressively yet, but it's your BMWs and Mercedes and so on. But certainly from our perspective, we can see that the absolute strength of that Toyota Land Cruiser, and I guess Lexus will come up now, is dominant as well.
Definitely. And then, of course, looking forward, we are expanding the Land Cruiser brand into a more affordable option. So with the introduction of the Land Cruiser FJ. So that'll be interesting to see the market uptake on that, and instilling those Land Cruiser aspirational values at a more accessible price point. Different vehicle as well, more youthful in execution, and some interesting product in the lineup.
So it's back to that quality,
durability.
And you're saying that what you've done since 2020 is translate those values and the icons in that space, the Fortuner and the Hilux, down into that passenger market as well. Because when you look at who you compete with, and you can't ignore the Chinese OEM. Chery published a stat last month that if you add all their different brands together, they were number 2 in the market. So I guess that you guys have to be looking over your shoulder a little.
Alan, I think it's a great point. We're not in the space where you can ignore anyone. And 2, 3 years ago, we all spoke about the Chinese, and that was almost used as a collective noun. And now there are really strong Chinese origin brands that are competing, as you say, the Cherry Group as a whole, that are disrupting the marketplace. And you need to be on your toes, and you need to be responsive to your customers, and you need to protect your own identity, your own brand values, and really find what makes you unique and sets you apart, because buyers ultimately now are spoiled for choice. One of the fallbacks that we always like to highlight is that we have the biggest dealer network. Our parts supply rate, and the whole Toyota value chain and ownership experience that's been developed over 60 years since introduction in South Africa. So that really does empower the customer, and we like to pride ourselves that we offer that number one customer experience. And yes, you just need to be on your toes and be resilient to the market.
Because customers do have a choice, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean they all choose the same thing.
Correct.
Right? And you guys have very much focused on a segment of market that has focused on, because you are seen as a safe choice, a durable choice, a reliable choice, a predictable choice. And it's back to that acronym, as you said. It's through the DNA of the company. It's out into your market materials, obviously through your dealer network as well.
I think some of those adjectives you use there, we might, especially if you put a marketing brain on, think those sound almost negative, but when you need to go to work on a Monday morning, you want something that's reliable, dependable, consistent. And that's what the product DNA delivers. It's always there for you.
You can look at it any way you like. The figures argue that it's actually very, very successful, because it's I always say you're the ninja in the market. You're the silent assassin that has been quietly growing in the background while everyone else is focused on something else. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
In 2026, what exciting things are coming up from Toyota? You mentioned the new Land Cruiser FJ.
Yes.
What else?
So we've got a very busy year, and a lot of the product kicks off within the next 2 weeks. So Land Cruiser FJ, as we mentioned, and then there are 2 more SUVs that we are launching. The all-new RAV4, a product that's also really resonated well with the South African market. From introduction in the mid-90s of the original 3-door iconic RAV to what's become a very grown-up and evolved product. So the new RAV4 definitely brings a new edge.
That's an intensely competitive sector.
It is indeed. It is indeed. So what we've done here is leveraging the multi-pathway approach. It is basically our term for providing customers a choice of propulsion, not necessarily forcing them down a single route, i.e. hybrid or BEV or ICE. The RAV range now will feature normal ICE engines, hybrid, and plug-in hybrid as well as a GRS, GR Sport version for the first time on RAV4.
Okay, because look, your hybrids have been, you look at the hybrid market in South Africa, 90% of them are Toyotas.
Yes.
Yes, it's becoming popular with other brands and everyone is releasing a hybrid, but you are the leader and you manufacture them locally as well.
We are the hybrid pioneer, and we do manufacture them locally. Corolla Cross really went a long way into showcasing that hybrids could be affordable, cost-effective, and really kind of made it a mainstream option on Corolla Cross. So
I would say you've made it acceptable technology,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean. Hybrid is not seen as weird or new. It's like if Toyota does it must have something to it.
It's become the intelligent choice almost. And then on RAV4, as I mentioned, we're adding plug-in hybrid as an official model. That's quite an exciting product. It gives you really the best of both worlds. Full BEV mode with a range of around 100 kilometers on pure EV. And then it transitions to the normal established Toyota hybrid powertrain for an effective range of about 1,000 kilometers on a tank.
And I suppose you have to have the plug-in hybrid nowadays because it is a very competitive segment, and that is what, I mean, everybody's launching hybrids in 2026, so it's what needs to be there.
And we believe it's a perfect transition to the EV space, but where infrastructure and cost barriers are still in place to full EV ownership. A plug-in gives you a taste of that pure EV motoring with a luxury and backup of having a conventional hybrid powertrain, which is, of course, ICE plus electric motor, that gives you the range options, especially in a country like South Africa.
And with that RAV, look, for the standard commuter who's maybe going to work 10Ks or 15Ks in South Africa, if you live in a metro area, that the battery and the plug-in hybrid can get you there and back, and you can plug it in at home type
Easily.
thing. All right. So you mentioned the RAV4. Anything else?
And then on the topic about new energy vehicles and BEV, the BZ4X, which is our first battery electric Toyota product in South Africa. So that's an SUV as well, similar in size to a RAV4, that is equipped with something called X mode that really takes the electric motor powertrain and optimizes it for off-road use. And the vehicle is mighty impressive in an off-road setting. It is, in terms of tires fitted, etc., it is biased towards on-road, but I can tell you that it is surprisingly capable and more capable than most people would probably give it credit
So
for.
Toyota's doing an EV?
Toyota's doing an EV.
Because, right, I watch the data. I always see Toyota, you guys are the masters of supply and demand. Your cars move quickly off showroom floors simply because you put exactly the number on the showroom floor that people want to buy. You understand these dynamics. So that means to me, if I take that one step forward, if you're putting an EV in the showroom floor, you must think there's demand there to be able to shift that EV.
No. We believe there's demand there now. We believe the consumer psyche has kind of been conditioned to the benefits of EV, but also the unique, let's call them handling requirements that a EV does offer you, or rather requires from you. And it's definitely a growing segment. But once again, I refer to that previous acronym or term I used, multi-pathway approach. And that's really about providing customers the option of the powertrain technology that best suits them. So within the next month, we will have everything from a normal ICE RAV and Land Cruiser FJ to hybrid, plug-in hybrid option RAVs and a full BEV with actually two variants of BZ4X, two different body styles. And on the Lexus front, we of course launched the RZ as the Americans call it, which is a full BEV as well. Launched that to the market in February. That obviously plays in the premium space. So where there's been a lot of pioneering work done on the EV side as well. And then we'll be introducing another Lexus BEV model around mid-year. So definitely a busy year for us.
It's fascinating because look, our friend in Washington has treated us to the world's biggest geography lesson over this past 2 months. Who thought there was a thing called the Strait of Hormuz? But you obviously must be betting that, because you were thinking long before that even happened.
Yes.
You must be betting the EV demand is there in 2026, 2027 and beyond. So we're reaching that moment where South Africans who have been quite negative towards EVs is actually that moment is turning around.
And I think a key point is as battery technology improves, the usable range, because the number one concern about EV ownership is range anxiety, right?
Yes.
Will I have power to recharge it? Will I be able to recharge it en route? How far can I go? Will I get home before all the car's battery's flat? So all of that range anxiety plugs into the ownership experience. And as battery technology improves, charging infrastructure improves, that range anxiety will diminish. And hopefully we get to a point where you basically have equivalent to petrol engine in terms of range and usability and fast charge capability.
Range anxiety, I was looking at range anxiety. There are people who don't have range anxiety because they know exactly how many kilometers they're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Some of those are consumers, and often those are businesses. Well, businesses buy cars. I'm sure
Yeah.
they're big buyers of,
Yeah.
of your vehicles as well. And if you know exactly how many kilometers, and indeed nowadays you have software that manage these fleets, then that's a market as well.
That's true. If you operate in a small radius, in the fixed routine, and have the tools to manage your forecasts, etc., it is a real option.
So when we're getting a plug-in hybrid Hilux, then is that coming?
So we'll reveal something soon. There is a
Are you beating it up in Durban around that track right now, are we?
can't give away all our secrets, but there is a BEV Hilux that has been developed. It's still in its infancy in terms of in an LCV execution, but it is proof of concept. It will be on offer to the customers. We are bringing those in at a small sampling rate just to check local market kind of response and also how well the product fares and usage conditions, etc. But there is a BEV Hilux that in existence. So
It's not a Bucky, it's a BEV Hilux now.
it changes the slogan a little, but hey, it's still a Hilux after all.
It's still a Hilux. Well, Riaan, it's been fascinating to talk to you. But back to the recall, let's remind people again, it's a matter of we will publish the vehicles that are involved. Say them again right now. We will put it in the link down below. If you have any concerns, contact your nearest Toyota touch point.
Yep.
They will guide you through there, and it's nothing to do with warranty. Get to that Toyota dealer, get it fixed, quick and simple.
Perfectly summarized. So yes, across both brands, we've got the dedicated call centers. You can find them online, but also 0800 139 111 that serve both Toyota and Lexus, both Toyota and Lexus websites, as well as our truck brand Hino, and then the various brand apps as well. So my Lexus app, my Toyota app, my Hino app, ultimately all of those platforms. You can also visit our website. There is a dedicated landing page where you can enter your VIN. Best place to get the VIN is off your license disc. Enter the VIN, one click away, it scans the database, tells you if your vehicle is affected or not, and will actually show you if there are Takata airbag recall or any other campaigns applicable to your vehicle, and contact the nearest dealer or route it via the call center. They'll sort you out.
Great information to have. Great to talk about Toyota and where you're going in the future as well. And thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.